Hey, welcome to Genre Chat. I'm Caleb Walton, and tonight our guest is Tessa Emily Hall. How are you doing, Tessa?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. I'm really excited to talk with you. I actually took one of your classes at the Blue Ridge Conference last year on like deep POV, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
And I just loved hearing all the stuff. You got a lot of knowledge about writing and the craft, and so I was really excited to get to talk with you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, real quick before we get started, we're going to be talking about magazines and young adult fiction, a couple of different things, but I wanted to take a minute and talk about all the things that you're involved with right now. I know you're doing the Pursue magazine and you're working with Cyle and just what all are you involved with right now?
Yeah, so I am an author myself. I write young adult fiction and also nonfiction for teens. I recently had a book release called Coffee Shop Divas, which is devotional for teenagers. And I work in publishing too. I work as an associate agent for Cyle at Hartline Literary Agency. And I'm also the acquisitions editor for Illuminate YA, which is the teen imprint of LPC Books. And then I have Pursue Magazine, which is the Christian teen magazine. And it's digital right now, but we do hope to begin selling it in print soon. So yeah, and I also just recently joined a podcast, Person Fiction Podcast with.
Yes, yes, I heard about that. Molly was actually telling me about that the other day, and I was really excited. I actually haven't watched the show in a couple of weeks because usually when I'm working for this, working on the show, they're actually airing theirs live, so I've missed it. But
yeah, they've been on a break for a few months, but they're just now starting up. So I'm really excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a really fun show. Now, are you and Molly and Aaron and Alton all going to be doing it together, all four of you?
It's Aaron and Molly and me.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we just released our first episode a couple weeks ago. And so, yeah, I'm really excited. I've enjoyed that podcast for years. So it's fun to be able to be on the other side of it.
It really is. It really is. It has a really close feel, especially with all the people that are watching in the chat room and stuff. If I remember, I'll try to drop the link in the show notes so everybody else can find it from this website. But what inspired you to write young adult fiction? Where did you first start out in that genre and really in the industry in general? How did you kind of get involved with all this stuff?
Yeah, so I was a teenager when I really started to pursue writing seriously. I grew up writing, but when I entered my teen years, that's when I decided to begin really studying the craft of writing. And I started writing my first book, which was Purple Moon. And I wanted to write for teenagers, not just because that was, my age, but I just knew that I wanted to pursue youth ministry in some way. And I felt like God was calling me to write inspirational stories for teenagers, stories that they could relate with, contemporary fiction that teenagers could relate with, and that could cover some issues that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I really just wanted to help them to feel as if they're not alone in whatever it is that they're going through. That's just what God put on my heart. And so I started just as a teenager, and I went to my first writing conference, Blue Ridge Mountain Christian Writers Conference, when I
highly recommend it.
Yeah, I love that conference. But yeah, I was 16 years old, and that's where I met my publisher, which was actually Lighthouse Publishing of the Carolinas, and that's now the publisher that I work for now with their teen imprint. But yeah, I've just been writing since then, and it's been 9 years now since that first conference that I went to. And it's just been a really fun journey, and I love the opportunity to be able to reach teenagers through fiction and also nonfiction and speaking as well.
That's awesome. And that's such a vulnerable age, just that whole age range, emotionally and spiritually and everything. So that's probably one of the best times to reach someone and give them good stories with deep meaning.
Yeah, because that's the age when they really start to become who they're going to become for the rest of their life. And it's just the age where they're making decisions that can set the course of their whole future. So I just want to help to journey along with them, to show them that, they're not alone in whatever it is that they're going through. And I want to encourage them to make the most of their teen years by embracing who God has called them to be, and also pursuing the calling that He's placed on their lives. I wanted to show them that, they're not too young, and that they really can tap into their potential at a young age and discover what it is that God's called them to do and to be a light for Him. just to set the foundation for their relationship with God, which is going to carry them throughout the rest of their lives.
Exactly. I was actually reading an article yesterday, I think it was in Reader's Digest, and it was talking about how uh, studies have shown that reading fiction books increases your empathy and your emotional your emotional intelligence,
Yeah,
which
I
is
think
something that
that too. Yeah.
which is something very good in that part of your life, because that's one of the things is that we've sort of downplayed that too much about loving other people and being empathetic and having those feelings for.
Yeah, being able to understand, even if you can't necessarily relate with the characters that you're reading about, I think I love the opportunity that fiction gives us to be able to see from their perspective. And you were talking about my deep POV class, and that. Yes, I'm here. You were just frozen
Hey,
a little bit.
yes, I'm sorry. I think I had a little bit of a blackout with the Wi-Fi for some reason. For some
Oh,
reason, is everything back now?
yes, you're fine now.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Hopefully they didn't stop the recording. I wanted to touch on for a second also. I know you do writing for young adults, and also some of your projects are specifically for young women with like the Pursue magazine and some of the other stuff. What do you find is the main difference between writing for young adults and writing for specifically for young women? What is some of the different challenges and some of the different ways you approach that?
Yeah, well, really, my core audience, I would say, is teenagers, so maybe ages 16 to 19. But Pursue
Hmm.
Magazine can also be geared towards the upper range up to like ages 21. But for young women, I would say that involves like the college age young women. And for that, I would consider that to be new adult books. So if anyone
Hmm.
wants to write for that age group, then they should consider to write new adults rather than young adult, because young adult fiction is geared towards the teenagers. So about ages 16 to 18 is the core. But of course, it could start
Hmm.
at 13, go up to however old. So
Yeah, I love how everyone actually we're talking about that a little bit before we started recording.
yeah,
I love how every age group now is reading young adult. Not like there's some
yeah,
series that everyone's read no matter how old they are when it first came out. It's something about the I guess the fearlessness almost that writers have with the types of stories they use. It's like teenagers are going to accept the crazy ideas you put out where adults may
yeah.
not.
It's so cool. I think I even heard a study that said that about 50% of readers of young adult fiction are actually adults. So now it's like 50. It's not even mostly teenagers, but I just love that. I love that young adult fiction is so popular and so widespread that it doesn't have to be just teenagers, and that us adults, we get to experience what it was like to be a teenager again. And
Hmm.
I just love that age group.
Well, I mean, part of that stuff we really never grow out of. I mean, a lot of the young adult books are about people finding themselves and
Too.
being vulnerable and discovering who they are and finding their own independence, which is something that I feel like everyone struggles with, even after you officially come out of the teenage stage into the adult stage. You might not always feel like you have.
Yeah, that's true. And just teen angst. I think some of us can still relate with that sometimes. Just the whole angst of life that life presents us with. And I don't know, I love that age group, and I love books, and I especially love the voice in young adult fiction, especially in the contemporary genre. I just
Hmm.
love how a lot of the contemporary young adult fiction books are written in the first person point of view, because that allows me to get in the head of the character and to hear their voice a little bit more, and to feel as if I am the character. And I know some adult fiction books are written in that way as well, but it's especially popular in the young adult fiction genre. And I love that. That's another reason why I love writing
I've
for.
noticed that trend too. I've noticed that trend, especially with the first person present tense.
And that's
That
the
sort
only
of the trend they started in the Hunger Games. It's becoming a lot more common, and that's what I like to read because you do feel like you're experiencing it a lot more intensely.
Yeah. it seems to show more than tell, because even though for some authors it can be harder to write that way, for me personally, it's actually harder for me to write in third point of view. But with third person, I feel like you're more more tempted to tell rather than show. But with first point of view, it's a lot easier to show. And just because of the way that you write, it kind of forces you to show instead of tell. And you're just allowing everything to unravel through their perspective. And you're writing in that deep point of view. So you're able to go through the book step by step with that character. And that's just another benefit too that books have compared to movies, is that we get to be in that mindset. We get to be right there with the readers. We're not just watching it from a distance. It's not a surface level. It's not something that we're just watching unfold. We feel like if we've stepped into the scene. And I just love that.
Absolutely. What does your writing process look like? I know you do like blogs, the magazines, and then the fiction books. How do you kind of manage all the different types of writing that you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, for me, I have to schedule my time, obviously, because I am juggling a lot of things. And I have to schedule a specific time that I write every day. Otherwise, I'm not going to get it done. And so I personally enjoy writing in the morning. So I'll probably get about an hour to an hour and a half of writing done every morning. And with my process, I'm kind of a plotter and a pantser, because I have to know the general story roadmap before I begin to really write it. Sometimes I will just fast draft a book and just write down scenes that come to me. But then I still have to go through and figure out the plot and see the story from a bird's eye perspective. And sometimes I'll even write a synopsis of the book, just so that I can have the plot in place. Because as a character-driven novelist, it's hard for me sometimes to figure out where I'm going with the book while I'm writing it. So I've learned that I have to have a focus. Otherwise, I could just go all over the place in the character's head. I have to make sure that each scene is contributing to pushing the story further along, and that the character has a goal that they're reaching towards, and that the external goal is linked to her internal goal, which is all stuff that I discussed in some recent episodes with First in Fiction, actually. So yeah, I'll have that sort of overall general story roadmap, but then as I write, sometimes the story changes, and sometimes I'll come up with new plot ideas while I'm writing, even some new character ideas while I'm writing, so that I don't exactly have an outline, and that outline isn't exactly official, but that roadmap helps me as I write. It helps me to stay focused on the bird's eye view perspective of the book. So it's just really, my process is kind of all over the place. Is the best way. I don't like to.
You sound like me. Well, I think it was, I forgot if it might have been C.S. Lewis. I forgot which one of the famous authors it was that said a writer often doesn't even know their process when they're in the middle of it, because they're so excited about writing the book. They have to step aside afterwards and say, okay, now how did I get from the beginning to the end to actually identify what kind of writer they are?
And it kind of transforms too with each book that you write. So for me, whenever I wrote my first book, Purple Moon, I was actually more of a pantser, and I was more of a character-driven novelist. Of course, I was only 16 years old at that time, so I didn't exactly know my process. I just knew of this kind of general story idea that I wanted to write about, which was really just focused on the character. And so I started writing that book, and I would write scenes as they came to me. Sometimes, actually, that first draft that I write is usually very bare bone, because I write so quickly that I just kind of want to get it all out there while I'm still in the flow. And I can type really, really fast. And so that's nice, because as I'm thinking fast, and as the story is kind of coming to me really quickly, I can get it all down. It's extremely messy, but that helps me to then go back and know how I can fill everything in. So yeah, I started off more of a pantser, but I think with each book, I'm starting to understand my process a little more.
And that's something good, because you're always growing as a writer. no matter how long you've been in the business, even people like Diane Mill, people that have been writing for forever, it seems like, and they're very, very successful, still talk about how they're refining their process and learning more and improving.
Yeah, and it's important to do that. I was just recently listening to a podcast with Terry Blackstock. I love her her books, but she was talking about her creative process and how she never stops growing as well, and how she will even listen to conference classes, and how she thinks it's important. And I do too. I think that as a writer, no matter how successful that you are, there's still more to be learned, and you can still continue to grow with each and every book. And so that's another thing that I hope to achieve as well.
Do you do a lot of reading in the YA genre and in different things like that? Because I know for me, if I'm not in the middle of a book myself, like just really reading habitually every day, it's really hard to put words on paper and feel like you're getting in the right flow.
Yeah, and for some people, they find it hard to do that because then they'll start writing in that author's voice and style. But for me, it kind of unleashes my voice a little bit more. I don't copy that author. It allows me to unleash my own voice. But yeah, I love reading, and I read during like my evening time as I'm winding down. Sometimes I'll only be able to read like 5 minutes a day. I try to read at least an hour a day if that's possible. I also listen to an audiobook. Right now I'm listening to an audiobook of young adult fiction, like dystopian kind of book. And so I'll do that instead of really watching TV. I'll just read, and I'm usually reading more than one book at a time.
I'm guilty of that too. I think I'm in the middle of like 4 right now, to be honest.
Yeah, I have book ADD, and that's what's hard about having a Kindle is that I'll just download these books. Sometimes I forget that they're on my Kindle and that I was in the middle of reading this book because I've started all these other new books. I really need to focus on just finishing the books. But yeah, I love just getting a sense for, I think it's important as an author to know what's selling in your genre, and what's popular, and how you can bring something new to the table in a way that really hits those trends, or hits what it is that the core audience is looking for.
And I also, on that note, I wanted to ask how, I know you've obviously looked at a lot of young adult books and stories and stuff, working in the publishing industry. And a lot of times there seems to be trends where a lot of books will come out, or movies based on the books will come out, and it'll be very similar storylines, the dystopian and the love triangle and then the fantasy, different things like that. How do you really find your niche in young adult when the trends change and then certain things stay the same, and the general flow? How do you sort of find what's still going to be popular and what's sort of been overdone?
Yeah, that's the thing. You really can't predict the future of publishing. And the thing is, publishing moves at such a slow pace, and the process of writing a book is slow. The process of sending it out and hearing from publishers and then signing the contract after that, your book might not be released until a year or more. And so you don't know what's going to be popular by the time that your book is actually published. And so my advice is really not to try to chase the trends. It's important to understand, to be familiar with what's important, but you don't know what could be the next trendsetter. And so I want to tell people, be familiar with what's trending and write in a way that can appeal to that target audience, but do it in a way that can bring something fresh and something new to the table. It's good to be unique. It's not good to be too unique in a way that there's not going to be an audience for that, because it's just been done before, and it's too much of a risk for a publisher, especially to sign a new author in hopes that they'll start this new trend with this author. So just be familiar with the trends, but don't necessarily chase after them. Just write the book that you feel led to write, and in a way that you write it in a way that you try to gear it towards your target audience, and you stick to your genre expectations as well, because there's certain expectations and standards for every genre.
What are some other things that you've learned while working with, I know you work with Cyle Young, and you said you were an associate agent. What exactly falls within the associate agent responsibility, and what are some other things that you learn as a writer, while doing those things?
Yeah, so I love being able to work on both sides of the industry, writing and publishing. I really enjoy working with authors and helping them to develop their own writing dreams and go after their dreams. And it's just a lot of fun working in both worlds and being able to have that kind of inside perspective. It helps me to know like what kind of decisions to make in my own writing career and that sort of. So yeah, as an associate agent, basically I work with Cyle Young, and I have a handful of clients, and I just work with them to help get their proposals in shape and send them off to publishers. And I connect with editors at conferences, and I'll negotiate contracts and work with Cyle in negotiation and that sort of thing. So basically, an associate agent has the similar responsibilities as an actual agent. It's just Cyle and I are together in working with these clients.
Okay, so it's similar to a junior agent. I know I've heard that phrase used as well, sort of like different words for the same job, or is there a difference?
Well, okay, so I started actually working with Cyle as an intern, and then I was promoted to junior agent, so I was able to have a little bit more responsibility than an intern. And then I would also, receive percentage of the royalties and advances of books that I would sell, and then associate agent, except that percentages increased and the responsibilities are increased as well. So yeah, it's just I started as intern a couple years ago, and then I was promoted to junior agent and now associate agent. And I really enjoy working as an associate agent because I've actually always, even as a teenager, I knew that I wanted to be a literary agent someday. I even wrote that on my blog, which is geared towards writers, Crisis, right? So it was really cool how God just opened the doors, and Cyle and I actually connected as friends. Our first writing conference was the same year at the same conference.
Really?
Yeah, at Blue Ridge. So we connected that year, and we'd connected over the years as we continued to go into conferences. And it's just cool how all that worked out. So
I love the relationships you make when you're doing things like that. I mean, I can't. Just even being a part of the show and serious, right? It started with a writers conference, and making friends, making connections, and then you honestly never know where that kind of stuff can lead.
It's so true, and really, that's my favorite thing about going to writing conferences is simply the connections that you make and the relationships that you build. Those are so beneficial and are so crucial sometimes to your career. Like for me, that's how I got to where I am today, is simply because I started going to conferences when I was 16 years old. So I always, tell aspiring authors to try to go to a conference and save up for one. And even if you can only go to a weekend conference, a 2-day, or even, Serious Writer has those tour stops. Try to go to something like that when you can, because it's not just the courses that are the classes that are going to help you in the appointments, and it's not just the possibility of having contracts, but it's the connections that you'll make. And also try to get to know people and hand out your business cards and ask for other people for their business cards. I know that can be hard for a lot of introverts, but I think it's really important for writers to take advantage of that opportunity to build their network while they're at conferences.
Just out of curiosity, are you an introvert or an extrovert writer?
Yeah, I'm an introvert, definitely.
See, I think the struggle is real for extroverted writers because it takes a lot of self-discipline to calm down and stop talking to people and focus on one thing.
I bet that'd be hard though, just because writing is such a solitary career in general. So you're having to sit down and work at your laptop. And for me, like as a teenager, I was completely fine doing that instead of like on the weekends, I'll be working on my books instead of going out with my friends sometime. But I enjoyed that. Like I enjoyed that time to myself and that time to devote towards my writing dream. But I know I just can't imagine what that would be like to be an extroverted writer.
I'm going to be honest, it takes a lot of
discipline,
wearing yourself out as an extrovert ahead of that. I work for Allstate, so I'm constantly on the phone and talking to people all day long. And sometimes by the end of the day, I've got all of that people person energy just completely out of me, and I can't be quiet and read a book or write for a while and recharge. So that's one of the benefits, I guess.
That's when you need to just examine your schedule and try to fit in, make an appointment with yourself and tell yourself, okay, I've got to just, get out of everything in my life, turn off the Wi-Fi, turn off my phone, and just go in and focus on this book.
I have had such interesting conversations with my friends that are introvert. My best friend is like a major introvert, and I was texting him one night or something. He said, "What are you planning on doing?" I was like, probably just have a quiet night. And he said, "Yeah, me too." He said, "I need some alone time." So he texted me about 3 or 4 hours later. He said, "So what did you do tonight?" And I said, "Yeah." So, "Well, you tell me first." He's like, "I sat in the room and watched Netflix for a while, and did some stuff on my phone." I was like, may have gone to a karaoke night at a coffee shop with like
Oh
50 people. I had good me time too. And I was like, it's exhausting being an extrovert. It really is.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you, I know you do a lot with the Pursue magazine and the different blogs and stuff. How did you get involved with that? And how is that approaching that type of writing and that type of managing? Yeah, I know you manage a staff at Pursue Magazine, and you do a lot of blogging and editing. In that area, how is that different from books and fiction and that type of thing?
Yeah. Well, so I started going back to when I was like 11 years old. I ran an online newsletter with my friend. It was a Christian kind of newsletter. And that's when I first had that idea and the desire to someday start a Christian magazine for teenagers. And so all throughout my teen years, I knew that I wanted to do that someday. And I already, as a teenager, I decided on the name Pursue Magazine based on Ecclesiastes 11:9 in the Message translation. And so I knew what I wanted the magazine to be about. And then a few years ago, I decided just to go ahead and launch the magazine as a blog.
Hmm.
So I did that, and I found some writers to join me on Pursue Magazine, and I started the website, and so I started the blog, and writers would contribute monthly to the blog. And then after about a year passed, I decided to go ahead and start putting together a digital issue. So this digital issue is sold on Amazon, so it's like a Kindle kind of magazine for your Kindle. Um, and so I started that, and really the whole magazine is geared towards teenagers, and it's inspirational, of course. And it really, my mission behind it is the same mission that I have for writing my fiction books. Is that I just want to give teenagers content that they can relate with, and that they can even find themselves in, and that will help them to feel as if they're not alone. And the mission behind Pursue is that I want to help them to tap into their potential, to embrace their uniqueness, and just to pursue God first is, of course, the underlying theme of the whole thing is to pursue God at a young age, but also pursue your calling and pursue the potential that He's given you. And that's what I hope to do with all of my books, both fiction and nonfiction as well. And my devotional book, Coffee Shop Devos, too. And so, yeah, it's been a lot of fun doing Pursue Magazine and having some writers working with me for both the blog and the magazine. I have different columnists who contribute, and I also have an associate editor, Rayleigh Gray, who has been an amazing editor with me. She really helps me also with the website as well, scheduling posts and that sort of thing. And so it's been fun, and we hope this fall we hope to release our first print issue. And we've had 3 digital issues so far, and in each one we interview a teenager or someone who pursued their calling or their dream while they were a teenager. So that's been
awesome. That's awesome. And that's something that I feel like is really good, especially in the market. There's a lot of potential for things like that to be successful and to start setting new trends. So it's really awesome that you started that, especially that you started from, with the blog, and just worked your way up to what you had envisioned.
Yeah. And that's what's been so cool, is seeing that I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, what I was getting myself into, because there wasn't like a handbook for me to read about how to go about starting this magazine.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it's okay. I didn't have to know what I was going to do every single step of the way. I just needed to take that one step. And that first step was just through creating and launching my blog. And it's grown little by little since then. And I'm excited for what God has in store for the future with that too.
That's awesome. Well, I've enjoyed having you on the show. I've learned a lot about the genre, and I've just really enjoyed talking with you. We only have a few minutes left, but I did want to ask, was a website or anywhere else that, our viewers can go to learn more about you and the different things you're involved with?
Yeah, so my website is tessaemilyhall.com. And on there, you can actually sign up to receive my mailing list. I send out about one a month. And those who subscribe will receive access to a readers only page, and they'll receive like coffee recipes, and they can enter a giveaway to receive a Amazon or Starbucks gift card. There's also bonus content behind each of my books there. And then on my website, you can also find my social media links. I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and you can just find me on Tessa Emily Hall is my username across everything. So.
Awesome. Real quick before we go, if you had to give one piece of advice to an aspiring author, somebody that's maybe new to the industry, what would you want them to kind of take away?
Yeah, so I always tell aspiring authors the same thing, to read, research, and write. So really get your hands on books that are in the genre that you write, study that genre, but also read books that are outside of your genre as well, I think is important. And also research the publishing industry, know what it takes to be a published author, and how the process of just having your book published, and so that you can know the journey before you set out on it. And research the craft of writing too is really important, just to know how to get your manuscript in shape for publishers and agents, or even if you're going to self-publish it. It's important to just study the craft and read books on the craft, blogs on the craft, take courses through Serious Writer. And write, of course, make writing a priority. Even though it is important to go ahead and start developing your platform, it's not more important than just sitting down and writing your book and making it that a priority, and schedule your writing time. Look at your schedule and see when you can devote time into working on your book, and make that important. Turn off your phone, turn off your Wi-Fi, and tell people that you're just focusing on writing during this time, because it's those little steps that are going to help to get you to where you want to be. A book isn't going to be written in one day unless you're a speed writer, but even then, I
don't think anybody could manage a whole manuscript in one day.
The fastest I've ever heard of someone writing a book was in 4 days, and that was Karen Kingsbury, my favorite author. And
wow.
After she writes a book, it's pretty clean, she says. So I just think that's crazy, and that's obviously a gift that God's given her. But
that's commitment. I wonder if she got any sleep during those 4 days, or if it was.
It requires a lot of just self, discipline and that sort of thing. And she's an extrovert too, she said. But so yeah, those are the 3 things that I always tell people, is just to read and research and write. So that's how
awesome.
To be a published author myself.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed speaking to you. I hope we can have you back again sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for watching Genre Chat, and we will see you next time.